It was a hot summer evening, the kind that made the air feel thick and heavy, wrapping around you like a cozy blanket. I had just returned home from work, tired and eager for some relaxation. As I moved through the house, I noticed how still everything was. My stepson Alex was home, yet the house seemed unnervingly quiet. This was a stark difference from the usual sounds of laughter and conversation that filled our space. My curiosity piqued, and I walked toward his room. The door was slightly ajar, and I could see the soft glow of his desk lamp spilling out into the hallway. I knocked gently, my heart racing for reasons I couldn't quite understand. When there was no response, I pushed the door open a little wider. What I saw surprised me. Alex, lying across his bed, was fast asleep. The summer heat had caused him to remove his shirt, exposing the slim, toned body of a young man. I took a deep breath, feeling a wave of emotion. He looked so serene, so vulnerable, and yet there was an undeniable pull I couldn't ignore. I stood there gazing at him as I noticed the sheets had been kicked off his legs, leaving him exposed in a way that caused a sudden rush of warmth to spread through my body. His sculpted muscles were visible, slightly glistening in the dim light, and I couldn't help but admire the sight. A flutter of excitement stirred in my stomach. I quickly shook my head, trying to dismiss these thoughts. After all, he was my stepson, but there was an undeniable attraction I couldn't shake. I felt a warmth rising within me, a forbidden thrill that left my mind racing with memories of all the moments we had shared. The laughter, the late-night conversations, the bond we had built over time. But this was different. This felt dangerously close to crossing a line. As I watched him sleep, I couldn't help but imagine what it would be like to touch him, to feel his warm skin against mine. The thought sent my heart pounding, an electric thrill rushing through me. I felt an overwhelming urge to close the distance between us, to erase the boundary that had always been carefully maintained. I knew it was wrong on so many levels, but the temptation was undeniable. Just then, Alex shifted slightly in his sleep, and my heart raced even faster. I held my breath, afraid to make a sound. He turned and opened his eyes, meeting my gaze. For a brief moment, time seemed to freeze. There was a flicker of surprise in his eyes, quickly replaced by a look of confusion and something else. Desire. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice hushed and heavy with sleep. I felt the tension in the air grow thick, almost suffocating. "I just wanted to check on you," I replied, my voice betraying my nervousness. I flushed, trying to regain my composure. The atmosphere was charged, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing on the edge of something monumental. "I didn't mean to fall asleep," he said, running a hand through his messy hair, revealing the sharp lines of his jaw and the intensity in his eyes. "I was just thinking." There was something in his gaze that made my heart race, as though he could see straight through me, into my soul. I took a step closer, unable to resist the magnetic pull between us. "What were you thinking about?" I whispered, my voice barely audible, my heart pounding in my chest. He hesitated, and the air around us felt heavy with unspoken words. "About you," he said finally, and my breath caught. "Me?" I asked, almost inaudibly. He sat up in bed, the sheets slipping from his torso, revealing more of his bare skin. "You've always been there for me," he said, his voice trailing off, his gaze searching, questioning. My heart raced as I processed his words. The room felt smaller, the space between us shrinking with each passing moment, as if the universe itself had conspired to bring us to this very moment. The heat between us intensified, and I could no longer ignore the pull. "I care about you, Alex," I said softly, my voice trembling with the weight of the confession. "More than I should." His eyes darkened, and I could see the desire in his gaze. "What do you mean?" he asked, inching closer. The tension in the room was palpable. "It's complicated," I replied, my heart pounding. The forbidden nature of our connection weighed heavily on my mind. "Complicated can be good," he said, his voice low and enticing, sending shivers down my spine. Before I could respond, he closed the distance between us, his breath warm against my skin. In that moment, I knew we had crossed a line, but the thrill of the unknown beckoned. I felt alive, electrified by the risk and passion that surged between us. As he reached out and brushed his fingers against my arm, a spark ignited between us, pulling me closer. I was lost in his gaze, unable to look away, as if the universe had faded, leaving only the two of us suspended in time. "What if we explored this?" he whispered, his voice thick with anticipation. A rush of excitement coursed through me. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying, but I knew I couldn't turn back. I nodded slowly, my heart pounding as I took his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin against mine. In that moment, everything outside faded away, leaving just us, wrapped in the heat of our desires and the thrill of the unknown. As we leaned in, our lips met softly at first, a tentative kiss that quickly deepened into something more passionate and desperate. The weight of our actions lingered at the back of my mind, but the thrill of the moment eclipsed everything else. We lost ourselves in the heat, surrendering to emotions we had held back for so long. It was a connection unlike anything I had ever experienced, a melding of souls that broke down the boundaries we had built. Breathless and wide-eyed, we pulled away, knowing we had crossed into uncharted territory. Yet, the exhilaration left me craving more, ready to embrace the wild journey ahead, no matter where it took us. As the night wrapped around us, I realized that sometimes the most beautiful connections arise from the most unexpected places. It was only the beginning of a story we couldn't have imagined, a thrilling adventure that lay ahead of us. With every moment, the world outside faded further away, and the chaos of our lives seemed like a distant memory. I could feel Alex's gaze on me, a mixture of awe and desire that made my pulse quicken. "Are you sure about this?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. I needed to know we were both in this together, that it wasn't just a fleeting moment. He nodded, his eyes intense. I've wanted this for a long time. I just didn't know how to tell you. His words hit me like a wave, and I felt the weight of them settle around us. The bond between us deepened, and I realized we were crossing into dangerous territory. But the exhilaration overshadowed any hesitation. Don't hold back, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I leaned in, capturing his lips with mine again, deeper this time. Our kiss ignited a fire within me, a heat that spread through my body. I felt his hands exploring my back, pulling me closer as I surrendered to the sensations. We continued to explore each other, the kiss becoming a passionate dance. Each touch, each movement sent waves of pleasure through me. The heat between us built with every passing moment, making everything else fade away. As I gazed into his eyes, I searched for hesitation, but there was none. His expression was full of desire, and I felt my pulse quicken. Are you sure? I asked again, needing reassurance. I've never been more sure of anything, he replied, his voice low and sincere. I want you. That was all I needed to hear. I closed the distance between us again, our lips meeting in another passionate kiss. The world outside ceased to exist as we gave in to the moment. As our kiss deepened, I felt his hands trace patterns on my skin, sending shivers of excitement through me. I climbed onto the bed beside him, my body instinctively moving toward his. The bed was soft beneath us, the perfect place for our desires to unfold. I looked at him in the dim light, admiring his features. He looked almost like a piece of art, a masterpiece waiting to be explored. God, you're beautiful, I whispered. A shy smile spread across his lips, but it quickly turned into a look of determination. You're not so bad yourself, he replied, his confidence shining through. As he reached out to caress my cheek, the warmth of his touch sent shivers down my spine. I leaned into his hand, craving the connection. There was something liberating about this moment, a freedom I hadn't felt before. I had always held back, conforming to expectations. But now I was ready to break free. With newfound courage, I leaned in closer, pressing my body against his. The sensation was electric, a magnetic pull that drew us together. Our hearts beat in sync as the desire between us swelled. Tell me what you want, he whispered, his breath hot against my lips. I paused, my heart racing as I processed his words. I want to lose myself in you, I replied, my voice trembling with desire. I want to feel everything. His eyes darkened with passion. Then let's not hold back, he said. With that, he pulled me closer, and we surrendered to the heat of our connection. The world around us faded, leaving only the two of us, tangled in a web of passion and desire. As the night wore on, we explored the depths of our connection, our touches growing more urgent. Each kiss, each touch brought us closer to bliss. The thrill of the forbidden heightened our passion, and we forged a bond that transcended everything. As dawn began to break, casting a soft light through the window, I lay in his arms, a sense of peace settling over me. We had crossed boundaries, yes, but in doing so, we had found a connection that felt destined. The world may have judged us, but in our hearts, we knew it was right. As I watched him sleep, a soft smile on his lips, I realized that sometimes the most beautiful connections arise from the most unexpected places. We were just beginning our journey, and whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them with him by my side. With that thought, I closed my eyes, surrendering to the warmth of the moment, knowing this was just the beginning of an exciting adventure we would share together. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. There's so much more to come, and I promise you won't want to miss a single moment.